Well, hello everyone. The date is Sunday, July 30th, and it's time for a Red Rock Northern Model Railroad update. But I've got couple things to show. I've been working hard all week. So let's start with the track work. You may remember from a previous video, I finished the Walters Prairie Co-op. I sold my grain elevator on eBay, and that's actually shipping tomorrow. Replaced it with the Walters Prairie Co-op, which is much smaller than the grain elevator. Got it painted last week, 2 weeks ago actually, I think. But anyways, the focus over here is the track work. So what I put in this weekend is I finally put in the spurs for the grain cars. And as part of that, I did some track work here. I removed the tortoise machine and I removed this turnout, which was further up here, moved it back about, that's a 3-inch section there, so that this route coming off, which is actually kind of a runaround, feeds the siding for the grain elevator. I also put in a switch here. This is on a decline, but it works fine. Took a lot of care in putting that in so it doesn't bind. But I could have got away with a single track in here. It's a smaller grain elevator, smaller layout, but I really want to kind of mimic the prototypes. What I always see, and I drive by a lot of these on my way home every day from work, is most of these grain elevators, they have multiple tracks to hold just a ton of grain cars, but if for no other reason, they have another track here for flexibility in switching. So trains will come along and deliver grain cars, and they may spot some of them, but inevitably only one grain car at a time can be filled from the grain elevator, and they need a locomotive to be able to switch the cars around and spot different empties to be loaded. And the most flexible way to do that is, from what I've seen, is they've got multiple tracks so that they can provide the movement of these cars while not tying up the main line or a passing siding. So I put in this additional track here. It's a little tight, but this additional track here supports either 2 grain cars or 1 grain car and a switching locomotive. A lot of times these grain industries have older Elco locomotives or older switching locomotives to do their own switching, so they can park a old switching locomotive here, and this can be a job that someone can do, actually switching out these grain cars. So this track supports, I think, 4 or 5 cars, and it actually got a curve coming around here which will support 1 more car. So I think 4 cars on this siding, 2 on this one, supports about 6 cars or 5 cars plus a locomotive. So I already talked about this turnout that I moved, and I moved the tortoise machine underneath as well. For me, unsoldering turnouts is always a precarious move because my soldering iron just really loves to melt ties, and it can be very difficult unsoldering multiple solder joints or tracks and getting that turnout in there while the solder is still hot. So, but I got it done. Took a little while and careful handling, but it was done. Let's see what else. Over here, got some track work that I did. I made some changes. I actually adjusted my track plan here to actually fit the actual track plan, the original track plan of Red Rock Northern. So originally when I laid the track here, there was some deviations. I had a turnout here coming off with a long spur here. I had a long spur here. And what I found is I didn't like the way this was looking. I just had way too many tracks running parallel here. I was getting awfully busy with not a lot of room for scenery or building. So I tore out this turnout here. So we no longer have the spur coming this way. That removes the industry from here. And I did put in this turnout that supports an industry or a siding here. This is just a temporary building. Gruesome Casket probably won't go there. It's a little big at this point for that spot. And I also put in this turnout here. So this is per the Red Rock Northern track plan for model railroader, and what this does is this provides a spur that's going to come off this length right here, and actually there's going to be a town here. This is Granite Creek, and there'll actually be a small town here, and actually I can, if I plan this right and I find the right buildings, we can actually feed one or two industries here, or small buildings, so we can spot some cars. We'll have a grade crossing, and maybe even a team track along the way. So it also provides a little bit more challenge because it's going to be a switchback, or a leading edge turnout. So it'll give a little bit more challenge for spotting cars and picking up cars and so forth from here, rather than just having all trailing point turnouts. Let's see. I think that's it for the track changes. Got a little bit more track that needs to come in over here. This track here is going to run around in the back. I guess I can talk about this. I took out the planned track here for what was going to be a passenger station. I don't like that. I really didn't like the way this was looking, and I didn't like a dedicated passenger station right here. So we're going to go with the original track plan, which is to have a long run around here in the back, and there's going to be a turnout here. The straight route's going to feed the new kit, which I'll talk here shortly, new industry. The diverging route will come down here and connect back to the main line. So really this is kind of just a long run around, but it's going to serve an industry. So let's talk about more new buildings. While we're over here, let's talk about the Walthers tank car oil loading platform. So I ordered this on, did I order this Thursday? I think I ordered this Thursday. It showed up Friday, or I ordered it Friday and showed up Saturday. Anyways, I spent a few hours Saturday, the day it arrived, putting this kit together. Never put together this particular kit before, but I needed a really thin industry right here. And the track plan for the Red Rock Northern has an oil loading dock, which makes a lot of sense because the published dimensions for this dock are 3/4 inch width. Now I find it's a little bit wider than that, especially if we're going to reserve 2 tracks, but it's probably about the thinnest industry you can get back here aside from having a team track. And I played around with the idea of a team track back here, and I don't know, I just decided to go, went with the oil loading platform. So we'll see how this works. So anyways, I built this guy, and not too challenging of a kit. Spent a few hours on it. It starts fast, a little bit clumsy getting these tubes all to kind of line up, and then you feel like about an hour and a half, 2 hours into it, oh, this is going to be a quick job. But then you get to these detailed parts here with the tubes that got to connect, this top that has to go on, 12 levers that have to go on, a bunch of pipe cap ends, and it turns into a lot of mundane, kind of tedious, detail-oriented work towards the end. So I took my time and worked on it start to finish in one sitting. I probably spent 5 hours on it, but I wanted it to be a nicely assembled kit. I didn't want to rush. I took time to file all the flashing and things like that. I wanted it to look nice. In the past, I've built kits on my previous layout and didn't take time to clean up the flashing, and it kind of looks like crap. And also when I assemble it quickly and hastily, wall corners don't match up. It's kind of bowed, and I really wanted this to sit nice and flat and have everything be true. So I really took my time, and I really like how it turned out. Now, this is molded in kind of dark gray, almost black plastic. You could probably get away with not painting this at all. If you look at the model on the kit, theirs is black, and every other one that I've seen on YouTube or photos, they're all black. However, the prototype near my house is actually all painted white, painted all white. So I decided to go with white, just to be different and to match the prototype near my house. So I put a couple of coats of white paint on it. The arms still swivel, the walkways still move down. And I actually just today took the time to, I don't know how well you can see this, but I painted the levers. So you can see green, yellow, and red levers. Took kind of a careful touch there to really be careful with the paintbrush so I didn't tag any other of that bright white with any of the red or yellow or green. And also there's I assume this is a bulb hanging down there, a warning bulb. I don't know if there's a normally red or yellow. I painted mine red. So I think it turned out pretty good. So this actually feeds 2 tracks, one on either side. I don't have room for 2 tracks. This is actually a runaround track here, so we're just going to leave this side kind of closed for business. Maybe future expansion. I did want to go ahead and I decided to put all the equipment on there anyways, even though we're not going to feed 2 tracks, in case I decide to move this, or maybe someday in the future I will use it for 2 tracks. Thing is, if you assemble it, there's no instructions on how to assemble it with just a single side, so I kind of have to kit bash it. But once you make that decision and start gluing stuff, you're not going to be able to finish the other side later. So I decided to just go ahead and do both sides. And this side in the back is actually where the siding is going to be for the tank cars. So sorry for the wobbly camera, I'm using my phone. Next kit to talk about, I really haven't mentioned this one too much. This one's been sitting on my desk for a couple weeks. I've been working on it off and on. This is a Pike Stuff 1 or 2 door engine house. So I had a nice big Walthers back shop for my previous layout that's up on auction for eBay. It's actually going to sell tomorrow. Again, just like the grain silo, too big for this spot. So I wanted to go with something smaller, and these look really nice. I think mine turned out nice. I actually just finished it tonight. I got sick of it sitting on my desk. I painted it. It comes in all blue molded plastic, so I painted, well, except for I think the doors and windows were actually white, but I painted the roof gray. So I frog taped it all up after it was assembled. In fact, I just painted this tonight, about an hour and a half ago. I sprayed it. These exhaust vents on the top are bright white, so I painted them as well, gray. Also painted, the inside is blue normally, just like the outside. It's just the blue molded plastic. I went ahead and painted that gray inside because you can kind of see that the inside from back here, and I didn't want it to look, blue all over inside. I want it to kind of look darker, or at least for no other reason, a different color. The downspouts for the drainage, water irrigation, those are actually in blue sprues. I painted those white. So I think overall it turned out nice. I do like the kit. It looks, I think, just as nice as the one on the cover. That said, this was definitely not my favorite kit. This was my first Pike Stuff, and I guess the finished product is good, but I got really sore fingers putting this thing together. There's a lot of cutting of this plastic. All the cutouts for the doors, the windows, the doors on either side. You can see I did 2 windows and a door on that side. That's all solid. You have to actually cut all of these openings out, okay, with a hobby knife, an X-Acto. And this plastic is very hard and rigid, and I think it's definitely not as easy as the instructions make it out to be. The instructions say, don't rush, go slow, you can do it. Score multiple times with the knife and eventually they'll pop out. I had a hell of a time cutting out. And I used a brand new hobby knife blade, number 11, just like the instructions say. And I had a really tough time cutting this plastic. It's really hard plastic. That's all I can say about it. My fingers and knuckles got so sore cutting out these little windows and so forth. And it actually came with more windows that you could put it in the back, but I decided I didn't want to put any more than necessary. I just wasn't having a lot of fun cutting out all that plastic, so I pretty much made my engine house the same as the configuration on the package. 2 windows and a door on either side, and I called it a day. I did not cut the back out, so you can actually have 2 open doors on the back for locomotives or cars to pass through. I don't have any room back here, so I didn't see any reason to have those doors open. But again, it turned out nice. Just a pain in the ass to assemble, to a cut, not really to assemble. Assembly wasn't too bad, but cutting the plastic was just a bear. The other thing too is in the instructions, and I'm going to talk about the instructions too. The doorways, they fully disclose these doorways for the locomotive doors. Even after you score the plastic and cut out the openings, the mold, it basically shrinks. Okay, so when you try to put in these door frames, these are a separate sprue, the cutout is too small. So the end result is you got to file and file and file and file and file, and the plastic, once again, is so hard and rigid, it just takes forever to to eat away at this plastic to get the door frames in there. So maybe I could have took my Dremel to it to speed it up, but I didn't want to wreck it. So I've been taking my time. So this sucker took me 2 weeks just because I kind of lost interest in it. But I got sick of it sitting on my desk and finally went after it tonight and glued it all together and painted it, and it looks nice. Now the instructions. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this. I'm trying not to pick on these guys too much. Where are they? Oh, you know what? I threw them away. The other thing I don't really care for about this kit is the instructions are quite a bit different than what I'm used to with like Walthers kits. Walthers gives you exploded view of the parts and it numbers the parts and it goes in order. The instructions for this Pike stuff, it reads like a story. There's hardly any diagrams, and it's just paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of reading. There's no part numbers. You just have to read and really pay really close attention to how things go in. It seems really kind of informal the way they did those instructions, and it's definitely not to my liking or my style, but I muddled through it and it's done. So that's the last thing I'll say about that. So obviously I've got another track to run here, and I think I'm going to run one around the side for I forget what they call that track. It's basically the track where you can cut up cars or set out cars for junk cars. There's I think it's a rip track. So squeezing a rip track here. These yard stub end yard tracks don't necessarily need to be this long. I can definitely shorten those so there's room for a rip track. All right. I don't know, just some miscellaneous stuff. I had a flaky UP5 panel, so I replaced that one. I had a flaky LocoNet cable. All the cables were good and tested when they went in, but for some reason this cable run going from that panel to this panel, whenever I plugged it into this one, I was getting some bad readings on my DT 400 throttle, and so I narrowed it down to the cable run, so I just simply recrimped the cable and everything's good now. Oh, I think the last thing I'll talk about is Medusa cement. So Medusa cement is new on the layout. You can see that in the back. I had a couple of cement cars spotted in there earlier in the week, but I took those out when I was cleaning out the top of the layout, getting rid of some clutter. But Picked this up off an auction on eBay. This gentleman does real nice work on these kits, and he weathers them, and sometimes he seals them. And so this was a really good industry that would fit back here, so I decided Medusa cement was going to be it, and this guy had one, so I bought it. It's pre-weathered. I think I'll take some chalk to it. You can see some finger smudges there, so I'll kind of try to blend those out with some chalk. Unfortunately, this thing, when it arrived, although it was carefully packed in bubble wrap, the top got absolutely crushed. There's a lot of delicate, spindly things glued up here, and it looked like someone stomped on the top of the box. Ironically, the box was in good shape, but for whatever reason, a lot of these items here were all crushed. So this was completely flattened. This box back here was flattened. These tubes were busted. That was busted. I mean, so I had to spend about 3 hours kind of remediating that, carefully piecing everything back together the way I think that it went, and I had to refer to some photos, but it turned out pretty good, better than I expected, and from a distance you can't even really tell. So the guy's nice enough, he's going to give me a $10 credit on the next building, which I did buy tonight. So the very last industry that's going in back here is it's a Walthers Centennial Mills. So you can see the footprint for that. I've been planning on this for about a week and a half. Again, real tight on space. Only certain industries here, background buildings, will fit in Centennial Mills. It's going to go back there. Originally I talked about having Armstrong Electric, and unfortunately Armstrong Electric doesn't fit there with the loading dock attached to it, so I got to resell that thing on eBay, unfortunately. That was a really nice kit. So instead we're going to go with Centennial Mills. And as far as the operations opportunity, I really like that. So that'll take covered hoppers for grain or flour. It can also take, in the old days they used box cars. So a lot of opportunity for covered hoppers on this layout. So we got a big industry over here that'll take covered hoppers. We got an industry over here that's going to take covered hoppers. So that'll be good. So that is the layout update for tonight, and I said I was going to try to keep this short. It didn't really work out that way, but I'll go to editing and cut a little bit out here and there and send to YouTube. So thanks for watching.